Hi, I'm April. I am a singer-songwriter and music teacher, and today we're going to talk about melodies, specifically how to write one. Remember that if you do enjoy this video, please give it a like, leave me a comment, and feel free to subscribe so you can see more videos like this one. So I think one of the easiest ways to get started with a melody is to come up with your chords first. This isn't really a necessity, you can totally go about it a different way, but I think it's a really nice place to start, because then you've already got kind of the outline of what you're about to do. So if, for instance, you're starting on a C major chord, you already have the beautiful opportunity to use one of those three notes that you just played. Yay! Now, if you've seen this channel before, you are probably well aware that I'm a big fan of not staying within the chord that I'm playing. Which brings us to our next concept, which is the idea of resolution. So if you're playing or singing a dissonant note that doesn't necessarily fit within your chord, it's going to be really jarring for your listener, which is why it's a really nice thing to resolve that note. When you resolve a note right in the middle of the chord like that, it gives your listener kind of this sense of suspense and resolution from that suspense. So it kind of works the same way that a movie would work if you were watching and wondering on the edge of your seat what's going to happen next. And then suddenly everything is solved and we know exactly who the killer was or something. For the sake of simplicity, let's stick with those chord tones. So in that C major chord, my notes are C, E, and G. So we can choose any of those notes, but a nice thing would be to just start with either your voice or the instrument that you're playing on. Feels a little low for me. I could also go up the octave, but that might feel like it's a little high. So what I could maybe do is or and both of those feel like they're a little more within my range and feel much more comfortable for me. Now, of course, my melody is going to dip below that starting note and it's going to probably rise way above that starting note, especially if I have a big build in a chorus or a bridge, because chances are I'm going to want to start going up when things get a little more intense. But I recommend starting with a note that feels comfortable for your range or the range of the instrument that you're writing for. Something that's squarely in there. From there, you can start to think about steps, skips, and jumps. And if you play any instruments like the piano or the guitar, those might be things that you might be a little more familiar with. I like to think of this very visually on the piano. So for instance, if I were a little walking person, I would start to think about this little person walking upstairs, right? If I'm taking steps, I'm going one stair at a time, right? Or one note at a time on my piano. But if I'm skipping a step every time, I'm going to be skipping through each key. Same thing goes for a jump or a leap, right? All that means is I'm skipping multiple steps. So if I was writing a melody, I might want to just start with stepwise motion, right? And there I've already got something really lovely. But I might want to add a little bit of spice to it, because if I'm only using stepwise motion, my listener might get a little bit bored. So I might start to go. And now that I've added a few skips into the mix, it sounds a little bit more interesting. So the melody I just came up with is and it doesn't sound anything like the Shire theme. So at this point, you can start thinking about things in terms of questions and answers. So if I have that that would be my question. And now I could think of an answer for it, like And the thing that makes it really sound like an answer is the fact that it is resolving. My first melody ended on that D or Re, and my new melody ended on Do. So I've taken my first melodic passage and I've answered it by resolving at the end to our tonic or to our home note. So from here you already have a pretty nice melody to start with. Now you can go ahead and use this same concept and build a whole bunch of other stuff. But there are just a few other tips that I wanted to share before we end this video. And the first is that we want to use juxtaposition. So if my melody in my verses or in my A section have a very stepwise type of motion, I might want to jump to something for my next section. If I use really staccato notes, it's really nice to change direction and use some really legato notes for my next section. Staccato, legato. You also want to be thinking about the range of the singer or the instrument that you're writing for. So for instance, if your singer can sing from that C to that C, you have all of these notes available to you. But you're not going to write this D for your singer because they're not going to be able to hit it. And chances are you don't want to use these C's either because those notes right at the edges of their range are not going to feel the most comfortable. Another important thing to keep in mind with your singer or your melodic instrument is the idea of breath. And this goes for even instruments that don't include breath as like a necessary part of the instrument playing. Like for instance, if I were playing a guitar or a piano, I would still personally be thinking about breath because what if someone's humming along? And breath is something that is so innately human that it feels like something that should be built into the music that we're listening to. So keep in mind when you're writing your melody that you want to incorporate rests and you want to incorporate places where your singer or your instrument can take a breath. That way we don't get so worn out with melody, 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 melody. Silence is half of music. The last thing I wanted to mention is that you should trust your instincts. If you write a melody that you think is really boring, chances are you're not the only one who's going to feel that way. But if you write a melody that you think is really cool and interesting, you're probably going to find other people who find it really cool and interesting. So don't judge yourself too harshly. Make sure that you find melodies that are appealing to you. You should want to go back and listen to your music because it's your music. And with that said, I hope you have a wonderful week. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, leave me a comment, share it with all your friends, subscribe, ring the bell thing, all the stuff. And I will see you next week.